Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a very special piece of content for you today. Normally on this channel, I cover chess at all levels. It doesn't matter if it's 100, 200 elo, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, the best grandmasters in the world, or even AI that's 3,700. Normally, all of these games that I cover start with the starting position, and they start in a position that is equal. Not today's video. Today, I'm going to be showing you a game that Hikaru Nakamura, the third-ranked player in the world, currently a candidate. He's going to be playing in the Candidates tournament here in 2024, competing for the World Chess Championship cycle. And he's the number 1 and number 2 ranked player in the world in Blitz and Bullet, as far as I'm concerned. Hikaru played a game that was so ridiculous, Stockfish could simply only smile. And that is my entire introduction, and we are going to enjoy this game. This game did not start on equal terms. And a couple of quick caveats about this game. This game was played in the Bullet Brawl on chess.com. The Bullet Brawl is a tournament where people play Bullet. They play 1-minute chess. I don't really like covering 1-minute chess because it's kind of stupid, but when the average rating of the players is 31, like 80, the play is a little bit less stupid. Except the opening. Because this tournament was ending very soon, Hikaru's opponent, Grandmaster Andrew Tang, one of the best Bullet players in the world, played this. And this is something that we refer to as cheesing. If you ever see that your opponent is pre-moving, for example, some people pre-move the London system, and if you play the England Gambit, suddenly they're going to lose a bishop, and they're going to be losing the game, right? Andrew knew that Hikaru was going to play this move next, because that's what Hikaru does. This is Hikaru's favorite opening, especially online. Not over the board, but definitely online. So Andrew cheesed him. He played bishop h6, which is a terrible move. It loses a piece. But because he knew Hikaru was going to be playing fast, not only did Hikaru play this move and ultimately lose his bishop, Hikaru's also going to lose the rook. Hikaru loses 8 points of material on the third move of the game. Technically, on the second move. 2 moves in, Hikaru now guarantees that he starts the game down 8 points of material. Now, you can already tell as an introduction to this video, something is going to happen that is going to be utterly ridiculous. And yeah, that is actually literally what is going to happen. This is a defensive masterclass. I know it's a little ridiculous. I know 1-minute chess is not real chess, technically. But it's still very, very important to understand how to play a position when you are down material. Because guess what? For all of you that are sitting there going, oh, this is bullet, this is nonsense, you're all going to be down material in a game that you play in the next 24 hours. So will I. Because chess is hard. It's important to know how to play when you're winning, but also when you're losing. So, knight to h6. The idea of knight to h6 is to play king to f7 and ultimately win back this bishop. So at least Hikaru is not going to be down 8 points. He will be down 5. Now, Andrew, who is playing with the white pieces, obviously is not going to, is not going to be fully there mentally after successfully getting away with this. When you get away with something like this, an adrenaline rush happens, so you're not really going to be playing perfectly. The best way to play here, if you're playing white, is you actually have a way to target this knight, forcing black to play defense, and now you sneak over here and somehow black can't get to you. And then what you would do is you would send help. Right, so black would go here, and you would just send help for your bishop. So I would play h4, h5, and try to get my bishop like this. Andrew, however, plays bishop g7 and actually walks directly into knight f5, so he is going to lose his bishop. But to be honest with you, he really shouldn't be that greedy. He's up a full rook. So Hikaru is playing a 3100 level grandmaster. We could live multiple lifetimes and not get to this level. And watch, okay? White plays knight c3. Of course, good move. Doesn't really matter. You are up a rook. Okay. Now, Hikaru has to make moves fast because he only has 49 seconds, and he has to make moves that don't lose the game because he's down a freaking rook. So he plays c6. The most insane thing about the move c6 is of all the things that black can do, it is the top engine move. How does he know that? Well, the point is he's gonna stop this knight from coming out, but also he's gonna get his queen to create counterplay, and also he's gonna create counterplay with his pawn. White plays knight f3, okay? Black can do a lot of things here, but the best plan for black is to advance with the pawn on the edge of the board, because you cannot fight your opponent in the middle if you're down material. It doesn't make sense. You don't have an army full of pieces. So you try to get some degree of imbalance on that side of the board with the move b5. Now, for white, if I'm playing white, I'm probably just gonna march down the middle, right? I'm just gonna try to march down the middle, open up the position. Andrew does play h4. I talked about this move not so long ago to try to bring it, his rook to the party. A very big decision for Hikaru. The move h5 is a bad move. You'll notice the evaluation goes up, and the reason is g6 gets very weak. So after queen d2, the queen can infiltrate, and it's going to be very, very unpleasant to defend this position because you've created more weaknesses. Hikaru doesn't create more weaknesses. He doesn't panic at the sight of this move. He plays the top engine move, which is to remove white's knight from the middle of the board. That is the top engine move defensively. The best move for white is actually to hang out here. It's to block black's advancement and maybe try to gallop back into the position. But he plays knight e2, which is not the best move. Look, 4.5, 4.2. Hikaru chipping away, right? Now the best move, I swear to God, he's playing the top engine move. It's not a5. Now that you've removed the knight from the center of the board, now you play d5. Now you do fight for the middle because white kind of left. So he can't get his queen out, he can't get his bishop out, right? By the way, have you noticed Andrew Tang has lost like 3 seconds? Every move Andrew is making is coming within half a second. It's unbelievable. So d5. Now, if white plays e5, the position is locking up. So what Hikaru's going to do is he's going to try to make it so that white can't easily make moves. All right? Andrew takes. Why? He's up a rook. So, of course, he's going to want to trade to open the position. Hikaru plays cd5. So he wins a little bit of central space. He has the open c file potentially, right, for the bishop to come out. But at the end of the day, the position's opening, and one guy has more pieces than the other. A lot more pieces. Technically, it's just one more piece, but it's a 5-point advantage. Knight to g3, okay? Now, black can play a lot of different ways here. He can play bishop to g4, but I think Hikaru is kind of allowing h5 because he wants to lock the position. So he plays knight c6. Andrew plays h5, Hikaru plays g5, basically saying, look, Andrew, you can't advance on that side of the board. But Andrew has made progress. He moves the pawn to h6. Now, this pawn is the last thing preventing that h-pawn from becoming a queen. So Andrew's up a rook, and he's really making it count because Hikaru lost the corner rook, right? I mean, and now Hikaru plays knight e6. If I'm playing white, I'm playing one of these two moves and I'm just going for that pawn, but it's actually shockingly not that easy, of course, because Hikaru's the best defensive player in the world. He plays knight f8. He's just not going to let you take the pawn. Now, what's crazy is you could actually sacrifice the bishop, which is not what Andrew does. And after queen d3, this is by far the most brutal way into the position. For example, g4 here is a move. You can take on h7. I would take, and then you would try to promote the pawn. I mean, it's really, really bad news. Bishop takes h7 is brutal. If white plays all the best moves, Hikaru's going to lose because, I mean, he lost 8 points of material in 3 moves. That's what happens. But Andrew's trying to play quickly. All right, he's not looking for sacrifices. He makes a bit of an inaccuracy, but it's still +5. Now, king f7. All right, we bring the king a little bit closer. We can now help stop the promotion. The king walks, right? Andrew castles. He's maintained a +4, +5 advantage the entire game. Hikaru's kept the game going. Still got 45 seconds on the clock. Both guys are making every move in like 0.7, 0.3, 0.4, 0.7, something like that. Okay. So now that white committed his king, right? He committed the king. He's going to put a rook on the e file. He's going to try to get a rook maybe over here. He's going to try to go for it. So now Hikaru's got to play queen a5. Now the king that has been committed, right? Queen goes to a5. By the way, the best move for white is not to play defense. It is to sacrifice. And that's what Hikaru does. He puts opponents in positions where they need to find the most critical responses. And with like 50 seconds on the clock, that's not so easy because you got to calculate queen h5 and then queen e8 and try to, get over here. And of course it's winning. Of course it's winning again. But white plays king b1. All right, he's respecting the threat of Hikaru. Now, e6. All right, again, creating a bowl of pawns around the king, trying to make it so that white can't easily infiltrate. Again, the top engine move, sacrifice the knight, go for an attack on the black king. If he finds that, wonderful. Instead of that, he plays queen e3. Clearly, by the way, clearly setting up knight takes g5. So if this, knight g5, and then the queen is going to get in, and queen g7, that is a much more natural type of sacrifice. So queen e3. Hikaru is the best defensive player in the world, because right when the situation demands a critical move, he doesn't get tunnel vision. He doesn't continue to try to attack. You know what he does? He puts the queen right back on the home square. He says, you know what? You're not going to sacrifice the knight. Speaking of which, the computer still wants to sacrifice the knight because black's king is so weak and this pawn is so strong, right? And white has enough material. But Andrew plays rook e1. He's just making simple improving moves. Can you really blame the guy? Not really. I mean, he's up a rook. He's got a +6 advantage. Now, Hikaru, again, not waiting for his opponent to continue to build the position, plays a5. The advantage has been hovering around +6 the entire game. But as far as Hikaru is concerned in a bullet game, he's preventing bishop h7, he's preventing knight takes g5, and he's preventing queen e6. So how is white going to break through? Hikaru has set up an absolutely perfect stockfish level defense here. White now needs to find, with, limited time on the clock, these sacrifices. And will he? Well, he plays knight h5. Again, he's trying to keep pieces safe. Andrew's not trying to lose any material. So he plays knight h5. He's still looking at this. He's maybe going to put the knight on g7 to pressure over here, right? Now remember Hikaru's last move a5. Andrew plays knight h5. Hikaru plays a4. Right? He very quickly evaluated that this knight posed no real threat. So he plays a4. Now, it's not really clear what black is going to do on the next move, by the way. Well, Andrew plays knight g7. So now the knight is there. Pressuring this, but there's no threat. Hikaru's knight at f8 is protecting every important pawn in the position. Is knight takes g5 still a possibility? Probably. But Andrew plays knight g7, right? And now it's a battle of these knights. Now it's important you know which pawn to push. Anytime you have a 2-on-3 like this, or a 3-on-3, you have to know which pawn to push. More often than not, the center pawn is better, because the center pawn forces a response from white. If you play a3, white can play b3, and that's the end. Now, of course, there's going to be a game you can get a queen and you can mate. However, generally, b3 is a little bit better because it forces a decision. If a3, you can take, and then you're going to get in. If c3, you can take. If take, well, then you're going to open up like this. So it's better to strike, right? It's better to strike with b3. And that's exactly what happens. Hikaru plays this move b3. And he's making Andrew make another decision. Andrew takes with the c-pawn, probably because he gets the open c-file. Okay, a takes b3, right? Now, can Andrew take ab? Yeah, but then it's only +2. Okay, it's +3 if you find some perfect defense, but knight b4 is on the way, queen a5 is on the way, and suddenly black has a checkmate threat, which did not exist the entire game. Suddenly, it's actually white's king who is weaker, and black's king is safe behind all of these pawns, which is why Andrew plays a3. He's just not letting Hikaru into the position. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So what does Hikaru do now, right? What is he going to do? He spends a whopping 2.4 seconds, and he plays rook a7. He's now down 10 seconds on the clock, and he's still down a rook. He is just down. He's playing a 3,100 rated opponent, down a rook. He's playing him with rook odds, basically. Okay? The rook goes there for 3 reasons. 4. The first reason is Hikaru doesn't really have any moves and he has to play a move fast. That's kind of a bonus reason. Reason number 2, you want to protect h7. All right? You just kind of want to, in general, protect the 7th rank. And you also want to double. You never know. Maybe you're going to double up. Of course, the queen could have gone to a5 anyway. Maybe a rook e7, right? Rook a7. Okay, Andrew's got to find it. Well, Andrew took on b3 because he wanted to play rook c1, right? There he goes. His rook is on the c1 square. So he plays rook c1, he attacks the knight. This rook might come in as well. That's exactly what happens, right? Rook e1. And still, Andrew can't find a way in. Hikaru's just defending everything. Everything is protected. Now, if you're looking to break into this position with white, probably what you should do, Let's say Hikaru plays bishop d7, which is what he did in the game. Probably at this point, you kind of begin reconsidering, like, can I bring my pawns? For example, if you play knight d2 in this position with white, who's going to protect this? Probably this rook. Now you took pressure off of this, and then I would just start going for it, you know? I would just start firing pawns away to try to open up the position, because you can't really get mated here. Well, at this point, Andrew finally does it. Andrew has had the entire game to rip open black's position. Finally, when he realized, look, I can't really do much else, knight takes g5. And unfortunately for Hikaru, knight takes g5 is still one of the best moves. F takes g5, queen takes g5. The position is now officially getting dire. So Andrew is now only up 4 points of material. He has 2 extra pawns, and he has a rook for a knight, so he has a 2-point imbalance and 2 extra pawns. He is still completely winning. The only question is, how much longer does this king have to survive? The king's roof has been blown off the house. If you walk over to g8, it's mate. It's knight f5, it's discovered attack, it's this. So Hikaru understands he can't continue to play defense. If he plays queen e7 trying to trade queens, even with the queen trade, white is completely winning, but he's not going to trade the queens, he's going to move out of the way, right? So instead of that, I told you, Hikaru is the best in the business at making the right move at the right moment. And in this position, not playing passive defense anymore, seeing all of this is coming, Hikaru turns this into a dogfight. He bites down on the mouthpiece and he sacrifices the rook. Rook takes a3. The evaluation skyrockets to a plus 10.7. But that's because Stockfish doesn't understand human chess. It doesn't know that there's 40 seconds on the clock. It doesn't understand that it's a bullet game. There's time of the tournament determining things. It also doesn't know the emotions that the players were experiencing before they got here. If we turn this off and we just let 2 humans figure this out, taking this is very dangerous for white. It looks very dangerous because there's a mate. And then there's backup, and then there's the pawn, and then you're gonna lose this, and then you're gonna lose some pawns. And I gotta tell you, by the way, this evaluation is down to plus 2.7. Plus 2.7. I turned it off when the evaluation was plus 10. And suddenly it's plus 2.7, which goes to show you this is not an easy position to navigate at all. So, rook takes a3. Now white has to navigate this position. You can take the rook. But Andrew takes a moment here, spends the most amount of time that he has spent the entire game. I'm not even joking. Andrew, on move 29, spends 2.8 seconds. He has not thought for longer than 1.5 seconds this entire game. And he says, you know what? Hikaru doesn't have a threat. So I'm going to go here. And that is the top engine move. Rook f3 is the threat. The game is completely over. There is absolutely nothing you can do. So Hikaru now spends 5 seconds of his own. And he finds, again, as always, throughout this entire freaking game, the top engine move, which is knight takes d4. That stops rook to f3 check. If you play rook f3, I take. Simple, right? So he grabs himself a pawn. Andrew is now only up 2 points of material, but what if I told you this position was plus 9 for white? But the moves are really weird. To get a plus 9 advantage here, you have to ignore everything and get out with your knight. You have to make you have to remove the knight from the position that you played it because you threatened queen f6. And then or queen g7, and at that point, black is in a lot of trouble. However, the other 2 moves that get an advantage are rook to c3, which, what does that do? And I'm not even joking, rook to e1. You could play rook g3 as well, but it's not really clear what that does. Well, instead of all of that, Andrew calculates a tactic. Andrew calculates bishop takes h7. Ooh, bishop takes h7. And the idea of bishop takes h7 is after you take with the knight, I'm going to go queen h5 check. And then you're going to move the king somewhere, let's say to f8. And then I'm probably just going to take the rook. So now you are getting mated soon. and I'm going to be up a rook. And if queen a3, there's knight e6 check, and I'm just going to win the game. You can take rook c8. Look at this, rook e8 is mate. Brutal. So Andrew plays bishop takes h7. And in 1.4 seconds, Hikaru realizes that it's mate in 3. And as I always say, the worst evaluation that you can get in chess is that of a BMW. There's a checkmate in this position, and it was only made possible by Hikaru's previous defensive move, which was knight takes d4. He played knight takes d4 purely out of necessity to stop rook to f3. And by accident, White, who was too tentative and did not want to take this rook to allow the queen and the pawn there, White forced Hikaru to make a defensive move. But it was secretly an offensive move, because now the queen has access to a6, which was also made possible by Andrew Tang's sacrifice. This bishop controlled that square, but by going over here, hoping Hikaru would take, creating this attack, and then taking his rook, he allowed queen a6, but it's not queen a6 right away. It's rook a1 check. And the king is mummified with this b3 pawn. King takes a1, the queen goes to a6, and queen a2 is mate. Hikaru was down a rook and a bishop after 4 turns. You could argue he was down a rook and a bishop in this position. For him to safeguard his king and just create the tiniest of windows, just safeguard his king, protect everything in his position, defend, and then advance the pawns in this fashion to make sure this king was always a little unpleasant. Defend, 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 defend. The second things got dire, sacrifice the rook, understanding that probably it was losing, but at least there were chances. And when the opponent didn't take, he stopped their threats, held on hope, and he ends the game. One mistake, 30 moves, one mistake, and against Hikaru, it is absolutely fatal. I said at the beginning of this video, I understand it's bullet. I understand bullet is silly. But that was absolutely ridiculous. That was ridiculous. I don't care if it's a 1-minute game. Like, he beat one of the best bullet players in the world. He's 3,100. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, it's so crazy how instructively he defends everything, how nothing can be captured. Bullet or not, that was unbelievable. So, that is how you play defense. Now get out of here.